The large corporation where I work is beyond your capabilities. David Jones denigrated me at our middle school reunion, which included 50 of my classmates. Even though I am now over 50, David still treats me like a rival. I feel sorry for David after hearing his foolish remarks. I believe it's time to dispel his misunderstandings. So, which branch are you at? After realizing who I am, David, who had denigrated me so haughtily, begins to shake. Michael Miller is my name. I am a professional who is 52 years old. I have enjoyed reading since I was a young child, especially biographies of famous people. My goal was to make a difference in society. Before I knew it, I began to act without being asked. By middle school, I was frequently trusted as a representative, as evidenced by my nomination as class president or my appointment as club captain. But I always took care to avoid being egotistical or controlling other people. I steered things in a pleasing direction and led conversations with those around me, following the model of previous great personalities. This strategy was well welcomed, and I had a happy time in middle school. I've had a happy life throughout high school, college, and my career. But now that I think about it, middle school was the most rewarding and pleasurable time of my life. Just last month, my middle school classmates were brought together by the reunion postcard. Many people have left our hometown at this age. I can't even recall when I last saw my friends from middle school. I indicated my attendance right away and mailed the reply card because I was so excited about seeing my former classmates. I was excited and uneasy as I made my way to the location on the day of the reunion. There were already several individuals at the door to the upscale hotel where the reunion was held. "Is that Michael, Hugh? It's been a while." As soon as I got there, my classmates welcomed me. Most were there already, but I felt like I was early. Like me, everyone must have been anticipating today. We are all in our 50s today, unlike when we were teenagers in middle school. Everyone had grown older, yet their youthful features persisted, which made me smile naturally. I was discussing our recent life with a classmate who was nearby when we were abruptly stopped by a loud, annoying laugh. As I turned around, I noticed a man wearing flashy clothing. Wearing a suit of high-end cloth, he flashed a gleaming watch from his sleeve. His arms were crossed as he stood looking around the room smugly. I didn't identify him at first, but his haughty manner quickly made him obvious. David Jones, a classmate who had always annoyed me, arrived late. Perhaps because he was just as intelligent as I was, David seemed to have detested me. However, in contrast to me, who was fortunate to have friends, David had a harsh disposition and attacked anyone he didn't like. The upshot was that our peers avoided him. Although we were enjoying our talk, David's presence caused us to look at each other uneasily. To avoid him, some students even got up from their seats. However, David saw me and smirked as he approached. "It's been a while, Michael. You look a little shabby," David remarked. "At first, David, I didn't recognize you. You have on a dapper suit. It fits you perfectly." He must have been pleased by my sincere compliment. David crossed his arms once more and examined my attire, looking me up and down. "Since middle school, you haven't changed all that much." David continued to stare down on me and criticize me further, saying, "You're old enough to pay more attention to your appearance. It's likely that you don't have the money for excellent clothes. Your income and employment must be negligible. Additionally, you may be dining at a hotel for the first time tonight. Be careful to consume enough food." He appeared to be oblivious to the annoyed glances from those in our vicinity. I could only smile uncomfortably because I didn't want to quarrel, and David continued to spew insults without considering the reactions. David eventually became interested in our careers. "What do you guys do for a living, by the way? You must not have essential occupations based on your shoddy attire." David began speculating about each classmate without waiting for responses. "You must work at an auto repair business because you were always reading automotive magazines in middle school. And you You and your family own a farm. You are most likely working on the family farm because you were never able to find employment. David persisted in making prejudicial assumptions about pointing at classmates. As was to be expected, an uneasy mood descended around the group, and David received no response. David merely laughed out, whether he was unaware of the critical tone or was just dismissing it. Most of you probably spend your time growing vegetables or taking care of animals, always busy with work. I'm different from you all. I'm smart and intellectual, so I work for a solid company. Despite no one asking, David proudly pulled out his business card and thrust it into my hand, showing off the name Capital Corporation, a major local company with the title of manager. This company develops, manufactures, and sells precision equipment for industries and research institutions. Seeing the unexpected company name, I couldn't help but gape. David, seeing my surprise, smirked even more. Placing his hands on my shoulders, he began to speak, barely able to contain his joy. Surprised? Well, this is reality. I studied hard, graduated from Harvard, and became a manager at Capital Corporation. Where did you end up? How much did you study after middle school? No matter what university you graduate from or what job you have, people are not superior or inferior. Different jobs support each other, and that's how society functions. My tone became harsher. It wasn't just because David insulted me, but because I couldn't stand his attitude of looking down on our classmates in professions like farming and livestock raising. David seemed surprised by my harsh response. He stared at me blankly for a moment. Then his expression twisted. If you're so defensive, Michael, you must be doing manual labor. You were always pampered, but it looks like you didn't put in the effort after middle school. He turned away as if he'd seen something disgusting, shaking his head exaggeratedly. Talking to someone on a different intellectual level is exhausting. I usually talk with my fellow Harvard grads, so the conversation is completely different. See, you enjoy mingling with the lowlives. After saying that, David moved over to the table where the women were talking. It's a shame he ruined the atmosphere when we had all gathered to enjoy ourselves. I apologized to my classmates, but their criticism was all directed at David. He was annoying back then, but he's even worse as an adult. Indeed, David had always been boastful and oblivious to others' feelings since middle school. Back then, we thought it was just childishness or pride, but it seems it was part of his nature. If he hasn't changed by this age, he probably won't ever change. Watching David forced his way into the women's group, I sighed deeply. After David left, I decided to enjoy the conversations with my classmates. As more classmates arrived, almost all 50 of us were there, and the reunion officially began. As the class president back then, I led the toast, and we started our meal. At first, conversations were a bit awkward due to the long years apart, but once the beer started flowing, everyone became more relaxed and cheerful. During middle school, we were in the throes of adolescence, and talking to girls one-on-one was impossible. But as adults, everyone interacted maturely without any awkwardness. I enjoyed talking to several classmates about our thoughts back then and memorable episodes. We revealed the thoughts we had kept hidden, such as what we were really thinking back then or how we wished we had talked more. There was an indescribable joy in sharing these feelings after 37 years. Suddenly, the entrance of the venue became lively. Turning around, I saw the last person arriving, with several classmates eagerly approaching. Linda M. Wright? How nostalgic. Linda, who was kind and cheerful to everyone since middle school, was the class's sweetheart and very popular with her gentle personality and pure beauty. Linda was admired by everyone, adored by both boys and girls, and now her admirers were a mix of men and women. After a while, Linda came over to the table where I was sitting. Thanks for organizing today. No problem. It's great to see everyone again. Linda's elegant outfit enhanced her natural charm. Despite being in her 50s, she looked youthful and had a serene presence that made her even more captivating. Like everyone else, I had admired her during our middle school days. In fact, she was my first love, so seeing her at the reunion made my heart flutter. I was held up at work today and arrived a bit late. I see. Well, we just started, so enjoy yourself until the end. As we exchanged small talk, I couldn't help but notice her beautiful hands. There was no ring on her left ring finger. Feeling my heart race at this unexpected discovery, I momentarily hesitated, wondering how to bring it up. Noticing my gaze, Linda's eyes widened in realization. Oh, this. At that moment, a familiar voice interrupted from behind. There you are, Linda. Talking to Michael is just a waste of time. Grinning, David wedged himself between us. Linda looked puzzled, but David continued talking to her without missing a beat. It's boring to stay with Michael. Haven't you talked to enough? Let's go over there and chat with me. I sighed involuntarily, annoyed by his return. David twisted his body to block Linda's view, scowling at me as if to say, "Get lost." Talking with Linda is enjoyable, but we had spent a lot of time together at the reunion already. She probably wanted to chat with other classmates too. Thinking this, I glanced at Linda. She looked troubled, glancing between David and the other classmates at the table he had joined. As I considered what to do, David nudged me with his elbow. You should eat as much as you can now. You probably live a poor life and only eat bad food. After saying this, David had a staff member bring a chair and forced himself between Linda and me. I became a manager years ago. Talented people like me quickly climb the ranks. People working in farming or construction are on a different intellectual level. David was eager to boast about his abilities. However, Linda only nodded occasionally to keep the atmosphere light, showing little interest. Yet David, thinking she was listening intently, continued bragging nonstop. His childish communication, focused solely on self-praise, made me wonder when to step in and help Linda. Noticing the awkward atmosphere at our table, other classmates began gathering around. But David, without looking back, kept talking to Linda. By the way, I haven't told you the name of the company I work for. It's a well-known corporation, so I'm sure you've heard of it. David paused and then cleared his throat dramatically. He glanced at me with a smug look before confidently announcing the name of his company. I work for Capital Corporation, which has branches nationwide. After middle school, I went to a prestigious high school, graduated from Harvard, and became a manager at a major corporation. Some classmates who were listening from a distance let out surprise exclamations. This pleased David, and he began boasting even more. He talked about his first-class lifestyle and how he deserved his position in a large company, contrasting it with the supposedly fallen lives of his classmates. The atmosphere grew increasingly tense as David exaggerated his accomplishments. Just as his voice grew too loud to ignore, he stopped abruptly. Turning to me, he flashed a provocative smile. How about that? You must be surprised to see how much I've succeeded since we studied together. But a big company like mine is out of your league. Being looked down on in front of 50 classmates, I felt a strange nostalgia instead of anger. In middle school, David always competed with me in everything, from math quizzes to 100-meter dashes in gym class. But I never cared about winning or losing and saw school grades as a way to gauge my own learning. So, I never responded to his provocations. My classmates always got angry on my behalf, and now, as if echoing the past, they looked at David with anger and frustration. There he goes again, bragging, Michael muttered. David didn't do anything yet, and he's still so annoying. Some classmates openly spoke up against David, while others whispered among themselves. Why is he monopolizing Linda? Hearing all the complaints, David seemed to get genuinely angry. Of course, he directed that anger at me, which was typical of him. A person's worth is determined by the salary their company pays them. It doesn't matter how popular you were in middle school. Adulthood is different. Listening to David's misguided comments made me feel embarrassed for him. It seemed like it was time to clear up the misunderstanding. I motioned for David to stop and, suppressing my laughter, spoke up. "So, which branch are you at?" David was caught off guard, his mouth open in bewilderment as he stared blankly at me. Our classmates, who had been chatting with me before David's arrival, seemed to understand the situation and started chuckling. But David, clueless about why everyone was reacting this way, stood there stunned for a moment. Then suddenly, his face turned red with anger. "The branch doesn't matter. What's important is the company you work for. The major corporation I work for is one you could never step foot in." David's declaration was met with uproarious laughter. His clueless state finally broke our classmates' restraint. "What's so funny? Are you jealous of my job, or are you saying headquarters is prestigious but branches aren't? Let's stop this now." While everyone else was laughing, only Linda tried to calm things down. She didn't want things to escalate further, but David misunderstood her again. "Linda, you're the only one who understands me. Thanks for defending me. It's ridiculous how they laugh out of jealousy for my abilities." David looked at Linda with pleading eyes, but she wasn't talking to him. Linda was addressing me. "Hey, it's time to tell them the truth." "You're right, Linda." David's eyes darted between us, clearly confused. Seeing his bewilderment, I began to explain gently. "It's not that headquarters is more prestigious. I always appreciate the hard work of branch employees. As I said earlier, jobs support each other. Who do you think you are, acting all high and mighty? Do you think you're the company president or something? Don't talk down to me." David spat out his retort, making the surrounding laughter even louder. "I appreciate the hard work of our branch employees, but if someone with your values is a manager, I need to inform the branch." "What? What do you mean, inform the branch? What are you talking about?" Even after all this, David still couldn't grasp reality. Seeing his red-faced defiance, I was genuinely exasperated. Having someone like you with such values can tarnish the image of the entire branch and ultimately the whole company. Your behavior could cause the company losses. Tarnish the image? Don't be ridiculous. How can someone like you criticize my company? David glared at me, determined not to back down. Our classmates watched, some egging him on. "Go on, David. Keep at it." But seeing Linda looking at David with pity made me feel a bit sorry for him, too. I never expected the reunion to get this lively, but it was time to reveal the truth. "Listen, I'm the president of your company." "What? Are you out of your mind? It's a huge company with branches all over the country. If you're dreaming, save it for bedtime." I explained as clearly as possible, but David still couldn't understand. Realizing that no amount of explanation would help, I was about to give up when Linda spoke to David. She pulled up something on her phone and showed it to him. "Look at the company's website. You should know the face and name of the CEO if you're so proud of the company." Displayed clearly on her phone was my picture and the name, Michael Miller. David finally understood I was telling the truth. His face turned pale, and he began to tremble. No way. I really didn't know. Remembering the terrible things he had said to me, he suddenly began to fawn and speak in a sycophantic tone. "Maybe I went a bit overboard, but you'll forgive me, right? We were always good friends. It's not about forgiving. It's about the attitude of looking down on others. The fact that you changed your attitude, now that you know I'm the CEO, is exactly the problem." Despite my explanation, David kept grinning and offering insincere apologies. It was clear he still didn't understand, and I sighed deeply. "Anyway, I'll make sure the branch knows what I saw and heard today. If you're always working seriously, there shouldn't be any issues. I mean, I always work seriously. You don't need to worry about me, sir." David suddenly straightened up and started speaking to me in a respectful tone. His blatant change in demeanor showed he truly didn't understand anything, leaving me exasperated. I had been explaining that it's wrong to look down on people based on their job or to use respectful language only because someone is the CEO. Seeing that he still didn't get it, I had no more words for him. Wanting to avoid further awkwardness for everyone else, I decided to leave. Linda tried to follow me, but David suddenly shouted again. "Are you bragging about being a CEO to take Linda away?" Confused by his accusation, I stopped in my tracks. David then turned to Linda. "Linda, it's not right to gravitate towards Michael just because he's a CEO. It's about the person, not their status or money." The same David who had been bragging about his managerial position and salary was now spouting the opposite opinion. Everyone around us was bewildered by his sudden shift. Linda, however, answered seriously. "I wasn't talking to him because he's a CEO. It's a reunion, and I want to talk with my classmates." Our classmates agreed with Linda. Ignoring the supportive voices, David shook his head violently and glared at Linda with an intense expression. David noticed her unadorned left ring finger and grinned. "Then you'll talk to me too, right, Linda? You're not married now, are you? If status and income don't matter, why not go out with me?" Apparently, David was also single, but his approach to Linda was inappropriate. I was about to step in when Linda surprised me by firmly rejecting him. "There's no way I choose to date you, David. I could never be happy with someone who judges people by their job or income." Her clear refusal nearly made me laugh out loud. Even so, David persisted. "If you don't judge people by their job or income, then you should be okay with me. But if you choose Michael, doesn't that mean you care about his status and wealth?" "I have a very clear reason," Linda said. "I don't know what you're thinking, but Michael Miller is my husband." Upon hearing this, David's mouth dropped open, and he stood frozen. "But you're not wearing a wedding ring." "I've been helping my husband with his work since we were young. I often go to the factory floor, so I keep my ring at home." Linda looked at me, and I nodded in agreement. "Honestly, I thought you'd wear it today, so I was surprised too. Our ring is precious, so I keep it safely at home." Linda blushed as she answered, looking as adorable as ever. No matter how old we got, we exchanged SMS, but David, still unsatisfied, spoke up again. "You're lying. You're both just messing with me. If you're really married, why do you call her Miss Linda so formally? Using first names doesn't always mean a close relationship. Linda will always be important to me, so I call her Miss out of respect." To prove my point, Linda happily took my hand. Seeing this, David groaned in frustration. "But I wouldn't let you struggle if you were with me." "But David, you said you bought everything. Your clothes and your car, on credit, didn't you? And not just any credit, but with revolving payments. I don't think I could be happy with someone who uses revolving credit for big purchases." Linda said this firmly, but apologetically. "What's wrong with revolving credit? As long as I repay it, there's no problem. In fact, it's better because the monthly payments don't change no matter how much I buy." "No, David, the fixed monthly payments mean that the total debt never decreases, and you're just paying interest forever." It seemed David focused on the immediate monthly payments without realizing how much he would end up repaying in total. Revolving credit often leads to extended payment periods and higher interest rates. David seemed to be paying a fixed amount each month without knowing the total fees or when he would be debt-free. "David, we have different views on money. Please find someone who shares your values." Rejected by Linda, David looked dejected. Feeling a bit sorry for him, I spoke up. "Besides, Linda is happy with me. Look for someone who doesn't have a partner. You'll find someone great." I meant to encourage him, but David didn't take it that way. He glared at me, tears welling up in his eyes. Finally, he shouted, "You stole not just my job, but also my Madonna. Get lost," and then ran away. With David gone, our classmates and I resumed our reunion in peace and enjoyed the rest of the night. A few days after the reunion, I decided to call the branch where David worked using the business card he gave me. As expected, I discovered that David was treating his subordinates harshly. I immediately contacted HR to investigate the work environment in David's department. The investigation revealed that David was not only creating a toxic workplace, but was also acting aggressively toward clients. While he provided impeccable service to major corporate clients, David was reportedly rude to smaller or first-time clients. The more I investigated, the more bad reports I found. With a heavy heart, I instructed that David be transferred to another department, hoping he would remember the importance of sincere service. However, the result was disappointing. Unable to forget his past glory as a manager, David clashed with his younger superiors and continued his rude behavior toward clients, leading to his isolation at work. A few months later, he resigned. After quitting, he fell behind on his loan payments, and a few months later, his house and car were repossessed. David disappeared, and no one knows where he is now. As for me, my life remained busy with both work and family. The reunion rekindled connections with my hometown friends. We are now planning another big reunion for when we turn 60. This time, I plan to attend with my beloved wife, Linda. Until the day we can all meet again in good health, I continue to work hard every day.